about the lineage of the pastors already. You know, it was just the first pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he stayed 6 years. They did. And then when they resigned, why, they called Jim Coffey. And Jim just lasted, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but he just lasted about 2 years. And so we left, and Brother Atwell interned again, you know, and then and after Coffey left, why then Dennis Early came from California, and he stayed 90 days. That was in the first, right after the first year of '95. And he had personal problems, and he resigned. I think he was on the board while that happened, and his letter and everything that was going on in his life at that time. But anyhow, then Marvin came in, Middlebrooks, and he interned, I think, 3 times for us, you know, and after he left then is when right after the '95 tornado is when Bob Moore come down for the first time, the candidate, and first time I saw him, I was neck deep in the gym because we had it full of clothes and food, just that aisles. You could walk down through there. We run a relief thing for six weeks, and then he came. I don't know exactly when he came, and after that, when he was here that first time. Do you remember, Carol? How long it was after that until he came to be pastor? And then you know the rest of it, you know. Now your present pastor's David Dooley.
Well, this, besides our pastors, there's a lot of changes.
Yeah.
And one area we always talk about, that we like to talk about, that when we do visit different churches, there's always room for that, what we would call the good old song. And always in our heart, So we have seen changes. What do you think about some of these changes that we have in our churches nowadays, in music and so on?
Well, the hymnals taught doctrine. And you not only sang a song and praise and worship God, you learned doctrine in your singing. And that, I dearly loved that, And this particular change has been real difficult for me. The Lord had to deal with me, and he said, "You reckon you could handle this kind of music if somebody would get saved?" I said, "I'd sure try."
Yes, there's been a lot of changes, even we talk about the music, but I believe it's what's in the heart of who's worshiping and who's praising, because I know our mighty God just loves for us to praise Him and worship Him. And again, back in our lifestyle, it's one of the ways we worship Him, and doing everyday life that we do praise Him that way. And I remember also that when we did change facilities, we built a new church, which is First Start today. And I remember you had a testimony about someone and a vision of the land out there, because I remember the way the land was presented to the church was really a gift from God, but I believe there was someone that had a vision too, that
That was me. It was, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 years before I retired. Wally Lee, you remember him?
Yes, sir.
He was there one day, and he was a new convert, and he was just outside walking around, listening, you know. And so I took him through the hole in the fence in that property. And I said, one day, I'd like to see us have a church sitting up there on Easter, because I said, you guys be wanting to go to church bad to come here. You can't even find it. And I said, I sure would like to see that happen. And 3 old gentlemen over in Ada owned that 20 acres. And we began to communicate with them, and they didn't want to sell it. But we didn't give up thinking about it, you know. And over a year or two, the one that was so dogmatic about not selling, they was real old. He died. You know. And I think, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways, you know. And anyhow, he died, and we went back to him again, you know. And they said, yeah, they'd be willing to sell it. You know. And I said, well, what's the price still the same? And we had tried to buy that Food Line store when they went out of business, you know, the grocery store. But they tried to pull a Sandy on it, you know, and we had offered them $1 million for it, and they sold it in a group with some other ones. And the new owners, when they heard about it, they come to us and they go, we'll sell it to you. How much? About $125 million. Another $250,000, you know. I said, no, we don't believe we need it that bad, you know. But anyhow, in dealing with those 2 old gentlemen, we, I believe it was David Miller, that he shot him this deal. He's a pretty shrewd businessman, and pretty close with his nickels. And anyhow, he said, how about us paying you $200,000 and give you a letter of credit for $100,000, because said the government's going to get more than half of that anyway, and you just end up with $150,000. And said you could count this $100,000 better credit off of your taxes, and you're going to make money. Okay, and that's how we got it, you know. And it was all the hand of God working in it all along.
That's how I felt every time I look out there, is that, you know, the Lord has something special for that area and for the church, and that we really need to focus on whatever it is that He wants it as a church and as His children to what the outcome will be. And I'm kind of excited. I just